to me, is an exceptional student. While the common thing that one might see in academia is students doing just as little as possible most of the time to get by. Ryene is intellectually curious. This is a scholar who seeks to do more, to learn more. I've done internships in many arts organizations, beginning in San Antonio to our Austin area. Of recent, did internships in one capacity or the other with the blind team, the galleries at the Black Studies here on campus. I wasn't too surprised when she told me she was the one who sent me an email from Women and Their World. And so this thesis also is an example of Ryan's intellectual curiosity, a true hallmark of leadership in arts education. This thesis, titled Looking Inward, an investigation of equity, diversity, and inclusion at the Denver Arts Museum, involves Ryan's internship at the museum, where Ryene investigated the Pathways Exploration internship program at the museum over an entire summer. I also wasn't too surprised when I learned that Ryene had a leadership role in this internship program. The program is an extension of a public commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion at the museum. This internship program began to focus on diversity and equity and inclusion in 2019. And the internship takes approximately about 12 weeks, and participants are paid. So, guided by the social justice theory, this thesis uses descriptive case study methodology to examine the transformation, the success, the shortcomings, as well as the future of equity, diversity, and inclusion at the internship program. Let's listen to it.
Thank you, Dr. Jimbo. I might just forego using this because I think you can all hear me pretty well, so sorry for that. Yeah, my name is Ryene, and I will be presenting my thesis of an inward investigation of equity, diversity, and inclusion at the Denver Art Museum. And yeah, so my thesis focuses on the Pathways Exploration Internship Program at the Denver Art Museum, also called the DAM, and how this particular program is working towards the EDI initiatives of the museum. Internships are a critical factor for any young museum professional. However, many factors such as lack of pay, hindered museums from reaching a more diverse pool of talent. I've experienced different programs, including the internship program at the Art Museum. Last summer, I had the opportunity to be the lead intern at this internship program and learn more about the museum's EDI efforts. My research hopes to show the importance of internship programs in relation to EDI efforts performed by museums. It is my hope that this research will inspire museums to reevaluate how their internship programs are a critical stepping stone for many who wish to work in a museum. To give more context about my thesis, the background, I'm going to explain some more about the Denver Art Museum and the Pathways Exploration Internship Program in the next slides. So, setting the scene, the Denver Art Museum is located in the Civic Center of downtown Denver. This space is an array of government and cultural centers, including the Denver Art Museum. The DAM is one of the largest art museums between Chicago and the West Coast. This is not my words, this is from their website. This is how they describe themselves. With an encyclopedic collection of over 700,000 diverse works, the museum is composed of two buildings, the Hamilton Building, one at the top of the kind of cool triangular architecture happening, and the Martin Building, which is a 7-story tower-like building that hosts a bunch of artwork. It's really cool, really fascinating. I had the opportunity to work in both these buildings this past summer. During my internship at the dam, I discovered that the program, the Pathway Internship Program, was reevaluated and reworked to meet the current EDI efforts of the museum. This discovery, alongside other wonderings, leads to my central research question, which is, this is a quote from the Denver Art Museum's DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Statement. The statement reads, "Today we remain deeply committed to standing against violence, hate, racism, xenophobia in all forms, and fostering inclusion and equity inside and out." And I utilized this statement as kind of like a guiding factor for my research and criteria in developing my data analysis. And now my central research question. My central research question that guided my research is, how has the transformation of the Pathways Exploration Internship Program at the Denver Art Museum met the equity, diversity, and inclusion goals of this museum? I structured my research within a descriptive case study methodology. Due to the nature of case study and thesis research, I limited the years to 2019 and 2022. 2019 is when the first cohort of interns entered the newly reworked program. This would also allow for a more focused investigation on the inner workings of the internship program prior to and following the events of the summer of 2020, which, as we all know, and I hope we all remember, was a time we saw calls and protests for societal change within museums and within society in general. This time constraint also allowed the IOB to finish my thesis in a timely manner. And it's also worth noting, or I'll get to it again, but I'll worth noting now, that in 2020 the program was paused due to the COVID-19 pandemic. They didn't have the funding to supply, the funding to bring into the museum, so they didn't have it that year. So my literature review, it was composed of two sections, equity, diversity, and inclusion, and museums. My literature review starts with the origins of EDI as pertains to my study. It was important that I understand and uncover the history of these concepts. These roots are seen within the Civil Rights Movement and the subsequent Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which was a federal agency that administers and enforces civil rights laws against workplace discrimination. EDI Museum, which is the next little subsection, discuss the direct and intentional shift towards promoting DEAI, or EDI in my case, by museums. The intricacies of this task are discussed in this section. Racial equity and justice in museums in that subsection are components of EDI work and the theoretical framework that I utilized during my research, which I'll get into a bit later. And then for the museum section of my literature review, these sections followed museum internships and fellowships, as well as museums like sanctuaries. In 2019, the Association of Art Museum Directors called for an end of unpaid internships. This call ignited conversations concerning internship programs and the participants of these programs. And that's what those two subsections kind of focus on. Internships and fellowships focus on that call to action, and museums like sanctuaries kind of go into the history of museums as white spaces and how that promotes inequalities in the museum space and internships too. So my theoretical framework, I utilize social justice theory as a lens to position my study. Social justice theory is a political and philosophical theory that centers on the concept of fairness and relationship between individuals and society. This theory holds that all individuals, historically oppressed or marginalized groups in particular, should have the equal opportunity to contribute and benefit from the common good. This theory also emphasizes self-development and determination to oppose acts of oppression. And since my thesis is focused on EDI in relation to an internship program, I felt this theory fit my position and my views best. This framework allowed me to get a critical perspective, grounded in the concepts of equity, diversity, and inclusion, which is understanding how this internship program is working towards EDI put forward by the Denver Art Museum. This framework also allowed me to consider my position as a researcher, which is a critical thing to do. A quote that I got from Paul Cummings and Ross says that positionality requires us to think about how our backgrounds and experiences play a role in our relationships with participants and in how we carry out research. It is important that researchers acknowledge their unique outlook that may influence the outlook of their study. In this case, it's important for me to acknowledge that I worked at the Denver Art Museum as a talent and culture intern under the supervision of Lisa Andrews in the summer of 2022. Just in my thesis, I also pointed out that I worked there and how that my position may affect the outcomes and results of my study. And it's just also really important for that. So for the study, I conducted 7 semi-structured interviews. I carried out interviews with 3 current employees of the museum and 4 previous participants of the program. And to get this sampling of participants, I reached out to the Talent and Culture Department at the Denver Art Museum. I asked them, hey guys, I would like to interview all of you for my thesis. And then Justine Gregory, who is the Associate Director of Volunteer Services, informed me that I did not need to inform all 6 members of the Talent and Culture Department. Just needed to interview 2, which was her and Alicia Andrews, the Director of Equity and Employee Experience, as well as Heather Nielsen, who's the Chief Learning and Engagement Officer, who played a really predominant role in the transformation of the program in 2019. So with that information, I was able to really lessen my pool and get a really direct participant pool so I can have correct information when I'm getting my interviews. And for participants, that was another can of worms that I had to experience being participants for this thesis. I had Alicia, she sent out a call for the past interns of the program to participate in my study. She felt like it was ethically correct for her to do that first, and then I received the information. So I received back about 15 names of participants who were in the program 2019-2022, and only 4 decided that they wanted to do my study, which is fine. These participants provided me with a lot of information that I utilized in my thesis and helped me come through with some themes that I found out. Yeah, and so after participation, and then for my criteria that I utilize for participants in the program, a willingness to be interviewed, which is why I have 4 people, and to address the gaps in which this was interviewed, as I mentioned earlier, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the program was put on pause, and I was able to interview participants for the 2020-2022 cohorts. I was able to gain insight into the 2019 program through my conversations with Justine and Heather, and it's kind of noted on the slide that no one from 2019 decided to participate due to there's a compensation or time, but I was able to again get information about 2019 from the staff I interviewed. And from these interviews, my experience in a review of online content concerning the program, I was able to identify 5 prevailing themes: transformation of the program, EDI of the program, successes, shortcomings, and future considerations. And so diving into my data analysis, the first thing that emerged was the overall transformation of the internship program. So prior to 2019, senior staff at the DAM held discussions concerning creating a more inclusive and diverse internship program that would be a sort of pathway for students who are at the beginning of their careers. They will focus on students of color in particular, and that's the language we utilized in 2018, students of color, which I'll discuss later how that was kind of a shortcoming. But following these discussions, senior staff also decided that any internship offered by the DAM would be paid, with the exception of a student who is receiving college credit or the university is paying the student. There was a lack of a program that would give students a more holistic experience in the museum. Prior to the creation of this program, the Learning and Engagement Department, which is the Education Department, posted a majority of internships at DAM. The staff who worked on the transformation of this program took aspects of the Learning and Engagement internships and utilized them in creating this pathway internship program. So in the summer of 2019, the DAM hosted its first iteration of the Pathways program that it was called the Diverse Pathways Internship Program. This cohort had 6 interns across 7 departments. 1 intern worked for 2 departments, which had some intricacies in itself. Following this conclusion, the staff of the DAM worked with evaluators at the Graduate School of Social Work at the University of Denver. In this evaluation, Heather and Justine listed the organizational goals of the program. These goals included creating a pathway for people of color to work at the DAM, contributing to a more diverse workforce, exposing students of color to numerous museum professions, and creating a more inclusive environment altogether. The evaluators provided feedback to our staff, reworked the mission and goals of the program. And one piece of feedback included explicating how the Pathways program would differ from other internship programs listed by the DAM, and why this particular program is focusing on diversity and inclusion. So essentially, they were just asking the staff of the DAM to tell students why this program is made for them and why it's for equity, diversity, and inclusion. And as we're going to see in the next slide, I didn't really do that. That's fine. So in 2021, the program was renamed the Museum Pathways Internship Program. Feedback from the 2019 cohort found the use of the term diverse in the title made interns feel uncomfortable and somewhat tokenized. This year saw also the creation of a lead intern position that sought to help in creating a sense of community, the intern cohort, as well as serves as a liaison between the interns and the Talent and Culture Department. During this year, all staff, including interns, were required to take racial equity learning courses to learn about racial equity in the museum, and and that also has intricacies that come with that. But feedback from the 2021 cohort found that the title of the internship program, which was, again, Museum Pathways Internship Program, was misleading because there was no job at the end of the program. After discussions with the director of DAM, Alicia Andrews, who was the Chief Director of Equity and Employee Experience, and also the supervisor of the internship program, once she started her role in 2021, concluded that there was no guaranteed position in the program, and with this, the program was once again renamed the Pathways Exploration Internship Program. She believed that renaming this program clarified the purpose of the program and highlighted that the internship is focused on the opportunity to explore a career within the museum field and not get a job afterwards. Exploration. So moving over to the next theme, which is EDI in the program, it is important to note that the internship program itself is not focused on EDI, but is a factor of the DAM's EDI efforts. The DAM can benefit from making it known that this is a particular program, that this program is part of EDI efforts, alongside elaborating on the reasons why to staff and to interns who apply for the program. The topic of museums as historically white spaces appeared in each interview that I conducted with staff. While the staff of the program is aware of the unfortunate history and reality of museums, excluding this conversation from the internship program is not only a disservice to the program, to the DAM itself. So, yeah, essentially they just unfortunately did not communicate with their talent they're bringing in about the reasoning of the program, or the history of the museums being typically for white students or not for students of color. And this was a common theme I found throughout 2019, 2022, that they didn't really tell students why this program was being changed and why it was happening and why it was for them. But despite that, some successes, which is another theme, is through the civil adaptations, the Pathways Internship Program has become a program that promotes equity, diversity, and inclusion within the DAM. One aspect of the program is the exploration of different aspects of the museum. During the 2021 and 2022 internships, interns were given the opportunity to meet with departments outside of their host departments. Exploration was heavily encouraged in the 2022 iteration of the program. They were encouraged to go outside the museum with other museums within the Denver area and do what they will. As far as retention goes, in 2018, the cohort hired one intern full-time, and 50% of the 2021 cohort received full-time employment at the museum. The 2022 cohort only retained one intern, which is still a success in itself. They retained an intern during that time. And then shortcomings. So shortcomings of the museum was a common one that I found throughout my discussions with interviewees with a focus on race in the internship program. Interns who were part of the 2019 program felt that the program fixated on diversity of interns rather than exploring EDI within the DAM. Also, another shortcoming was the length of the program itself. Interns or previous participants found that extending the length of the program will allow interns to become more aware and ingrained within the inner workings of the museum. It will also allow for a greater exploration of themes of the museum itself. Additional shortcoming addressed in my thesis was the use of language that made interns feel marginalized or uncomfortable, which includes diverse, dimensions of race. Students of color was a big one that they found them really uncomfortable. And they changed that language, but still, with the program being centered towards students of color, there's just there's things that need to be fixed, but yeah. So conclusions. Ultimately, I came to the conclusion that the Pathways Internship Program at the DAM has met the EDI goals of the museum. However, there is always more work that needs to be done in promoting EDI in the program itself. While the DAM has made acknowledgments and informed steps to create fundamental change, it failed to provide transparency regarding the transformation of the program to the public and interns, and utilize verbiage that alienates or creates confusion for participants, and inadvertently creates spaces that cause more harm than good. And limitations of my thesis. So since this data was collected from a single institution, the results of the study are not generalizable. Moreover, the program was revised in 2019, so this case study has a shortened length so I can get the full scope. I also served, again, as a talent and culture intern at the museum. So while this position gave me a valuable insight into the inner workings of the internship program, there was potential room for bias, which I took away. And pathways for future research. So some pathways for future research can include comparing internship programs to other museums with the Pathways Internship Program. That was just a greater understanding of the performance of internship programs and why they should be included in EDI efforts. On a similar note, comparing internship programs that are specifically part of museums' EDI efforts will raise further awareness about this topic. in general. Another avenue for future research that could benefit the field and the dam is an intensive study of the history of internship opportunities at the dam and how they evolved from their creation to now. Understanding this phenomenon alongside investigating who was given these opportunities would be an efficient way for the dam to show how far it has come in its EDI efforts regarding the museum and its museum programming. And finally, an obvious course of action for this research would follow up with the staff of the dam within the next 5 to 10 years to truly obtain an understanding of how the program is continuing to work towards EDI within the museum. This could include investigating how the demographics of interns have changed over time, what internships offer as far as program interns and benefits. And then reflections. So as a previous intern at this institution, it was insightful to learn more about the inner workings of the history of the program. I am immensely grateful for the opportunity to go and speak to the staff and participants of the program about their experiences. However, there is more research and work that can be done for the benefits of including an internship program within the EDI efforts of the museum. I do hope this research concerning the pathway of the internship program for DAM, as far as other museums reevaluate their internship programs, but encourages staff of the DAM to continue their work that they are doing, providing a holistic opportunity for underrepresented communities. My time at the DAM has encouraged me to look into careers beyond the field of education, as I realize that there are greater opportunities for me in other areas. This research has not only answered my questions concerning internship programs and EDI, but has also provided insight into the overall importance of these programs in art museums. And this process would not have been possible with the support I received from friends, family, staff at the DAM, past interested in the program, and faculty here at UT. I would like to say thank you to my supporters and graduates of my cohort for all the work you've done.